Hi, I'm Karen Downing Ripley, and I invite you to join me on a recent, unexpected side trip to Brittany, France, during the 80th anniversary of the city of Plélo's remarkable liberation celebration, and learn why Bretons and Americans remember and honor our shared DNA of World War II. A last-minute decision to deliver my father's World War II documents to the city of Plélo, France, opened me up to an amazing experience that has truly changed my life. I ask that you join me so that you too can know and appreciate how we Americans are respected and revered because our ancestors fought to liberate the town of Plélo in August 1944. As Burt and I got closer and closer to Plélo, I began reading the war documents I hoped to deliver. I was staggered at what I read. I began to realize that there could be far more to this experience than just delivering World War II military documents and satisfying my curiosity about my dad's services as a liberator in Plélo, France. I hoped with all my heart that Plélo still existed. I saw it on the GPS, but had no idea if there was a mayor or a mayor's office. How much had things changed since the war? I was anxious to arrive and to get in touch with my father's war experience. I needed to come to terms with what my father and all the other liberators had experienced in World War II. I was humbled and overwhelmed with respect and gratitude as I began to read the historical accounts of what had happened when Lieutenant Hamsley led 5 tanks and 20 men of Patton's 3rd Army, 15th Cavalry Reconnaissance Troop, into battle to liberate the city of Plélo in Brittany, France on August 7, 1944. I began to understand my country, my father, and myself. As we drove through the gorgeous Brittany countryside filled with colorful flowers under bright blue skies, I asked myself, was Daddy here? Was it this beautiful when he and the other men drove their tanks toward Plélo? It was the same time of year. Were cows up to their knees munching green grass? Were chickens pecking in the barnyards? Were hawks gliding in the sky? Did Daddy hear the birds chirping in the trees? Or did he hear distant artillery? How did he and the other troopers keep driving forward? What was their motivation? How could they survive this incredible beauty in the face of impending doom? As I scanned the numerous official documents and unofficial accounts by American and Allied soldiers, I began to become aware of how unbelievable it was that men and women bravely marched off to war and near certain death to preserve democracy and freedom for all. They didn't fight a single battle. They fought for years, each and every day, with no end in sight. As we approached Plélo, I thought about the villagers whose very lives were at stake that August day. The Germans were literally lining them up for execution in front of the church across from the Resistance House. Did the people standing there waiting to die hear the rumbling of the 5 American tanks as they raced down the narrow road around the bend and into the square? Little did I know that I would soon be meeting the descendants of those whose very lives were literally saved by the arrival of Lieutenant Hamsley and the 15th Cavalry Reconnaissance Troop B. In July 1944, Patton's 3rd Army, 15th Cavalry Reconnaissance Troop B, landed in Brittany, France. As part of Task Force A, their job was to clear out the Germans and Russians who were holding the Brittany Peninsula with its English Channel ports, and to destroy their heavy artillery, thus securing the Allied advance to Berlin. By August 1944, Brittany and its citizens knew of the Allied advance and prayed that they would be freed from the occupation that they had endured for over 4 years.
So it is July 31st, 1944, and suddenly there is a marked acceleration. All these troops who could not escape from Normandy, or at least who were blocked there, are about to flood into Brittany. Some of the American troops, or at least the Allied ones, find themselves somewhat trapped around Saint-Malo and Dinant. We then decide to send a special unit, the Task Force A, to push ahead and try to reach Brest as quickly as possible. And that is where the long history of Plélo is inscribed in this extremely complex situation between Dinant and Brest. All these Allied troops are arriving now. The resistance, on its side, intensifies its sabotage actions to paralyze or slow down the movements of the German convoys. And then, facing them, there are the German troops themselves, who had initially received the order to join the Dinant sector in order to block the Allies' advance. Thus, we are in the quiet, tense evening of August 6th in Plélo. Resistance fighters arrive from the surrounding region and press into the very heart of the village, at the exact moment the German troops are turning around and heading toward Châtelaudren, or more precisely, toward Châtelaudren-Plélo, indeed. Honestly, they are not truly in a position of real strength. They retreat hastily, managing to reach and warn their comrades left behind that there is in fact a problem, an uprising. And it is at that moment that Colonel Hamsley arrives, entirely by chance in fact, as a member of a reconnaissance unit, the Cavalry. He arrives on the gray early morning of August 7th at the exact moment when hostages are at risk of being executed, and when there is serious fear of a massacre in Plélo. And then 5 tanks arrive quite suddenly, indeed, at once now. That intervention was extremely violent, yet very brief. It was truly a cavalry charge with 5 tanks supported by the Plélo resistance, who acted as infantry today. The German soldiers were rapidly and decisively neutralized. There you have it, the liberation of Plélo. We came very close to catastrophe. But for the population, it's, how to say, we have gone from panic and anxiety to liberation and immense joy in the space of only a few minutes now.
Plélo's citizens and the French resistance worked tirelessly to assist in any way they could to help the Allies succeed in winning Plélo's liberation. The pressure exerted on the Bretons was increased as the Germans began to fall back. The occupiers were angry and revengeful and made sure that the townspeople suffered. Gruesome acts of revenge and hate were perpetrated on the surrounding towns as the Allies advanced and the Germans and Russians fell back. A neighboring town was decimated when its citizens were herded into their church, which was set afire, killing everyone. The neighboring town of Châtelaudren lost several members of their fire department, who had rushed to put out a house fire only to be picked off by German snipers as they tried to save a home and family. My father, Delbert Downing, served with the 15th Cavalry. They landed toward Brest with 5 Sherman tanks and 20 men. Hamsley had orders to proceed to Brest, Brittany, when he was approached by a group of resistance fighters. They asked Lieutenant Hamsley to go against his orders and join them in saving the village of Plélo, a few kilometers down the road. Hamsley was initially hesitant, not wanting to go against orders, but upon seeing the desperation of the Free French, he decided to help them. As was reported in the Winter Park, Florida Outlook on December 14, 1989, quote, on August 7, 1944, the enemy was lining up a mother and daughter for execution and had set in motion the necessary artillery and manpower for the imminent destruction of the entire parish of Plélo. Lieutenant Hamsley's platoon quickly overcame the Germans' fierce anti-tank guns and proceeded to disarm the enemy, taking 50 prisoners and leaving 60 dead in their wake. Lieutenant Hamsley himself was in charge of the mission, and after being informed of the situation is quoted as having said, "I'll take care of it, then I'll go on to Brest." And that he did. The Germans were caught totally unaware and in reverie. Not one American soldier was taken prisoner, nor were there any American casualties on that hot August day in Brittany. Unquote. My unplanned trip to Plélo, France, introduced me to the trauma of World War II, not only through my father's experience, but also of the extended trauma of the community of Plélo, who had suffered the full brunt of World War II during 4 years of occupation. Americans know and respect the Normandy cemeteries that honor our fallen heroes in World War II. However, most Americans do not realize the extent to which we Americans are still honored as one of the allies who freed Europe and saved democracy. I feel it's our duty to remind ourselves of the price already paid and the debt that's due by each American to remember and honor the momentous and hard-earned victory our ancestors waged for democracy. Join me for the next episode of You Were There, Karen and Beth, and learn why every American generation must fight to defend democracy. Respect the immense sacrifices paid by our ancestors to secure our freedom. How can we do less? We owe it to our ancestors to defend what they gave their lives for.